Today on Primary Care, we're coming to you from Second Ebenezer Baptist Church in Detroit, speaking to Dr. Donovan Roy about diversity and inclusion in the medical school.
The lack of role models is another reason why we don't have many African American physicians who are going to academic medicine, because we don't have them on campus.
Hello, and welcome to Primary Care, the show dedicated to improving the health of African Americans. I'm Dr. Lonnie Joe. Research shows that across all races, patients are more likely to report being satisfied with their care when their doctors look like them. But for African Americans, Black physicians are scarce. Even though Black people are 13% of the U.S. population, only 5% are physicians. To address this deficit, medical schools are employing various diversity and inclusion strategies, like adjusting their admission procedures, looking beyond test scores, waiving application fees, providing financial aid, and diversifying faculty. Here to talk about this is Dr. Donovan Roy. Dr. Roy is Vice Dean of Diversity and Equity and Inclusion for Wayne State University School of Medicine. He has over 2 decades of professional experience developing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives on college campuses, and his strength and focus is on diversity and acceptance. Dr. Roy, welcome to the show. So glad to have you.
Thank you, Dr. Joe.
Dr. Roy, this has been a long-standing problem. My entire career and before my career, getting into medical school or wanting to be a physician, seems like we're dealing with some of the same issues that we dealt with 50 years ago. Where's the progress at this point? Or are we stuck on a square and a standstill trying to improve on a lot of these issues?
So, since 1978, when we look at Black males' representation in medicine,
78.
Since 78, the AAMC put out a call to action for 2015, because in 1978 there were more Black males that matriculated into medical school than there were in 2015. So now the numbers have gone up. At that time, it was 541 students in 1978. Today, last number for 2021, the numbers have gone up to about 831. That's still not enough. So why that number is important, because Black women representation has gone up, but Black males has gone down. But those numbers for Black women and Black male combined are still not as where they should be, especially when we're talking about, the representation and also to the care of Black patients. So one of the problems we see is it starts through the K through 12 experiences. A lot of times students don't have the curriculum and have the support they need in order to take the rigors of sciences, which will matriculate into undergraduate, which will allow them to be competitive applicants in medical school. So one of the things that we're doing at Wayne State in the School of Medicine is we're teaming together. We're actually putting together a dual enrollment program that really will provide the city of Detroit students the opportunity to take more competitive and more upper-level science classes, which would then in turn allow them to be successful, because the drop-off in what we see in undergraduate is during their sophomore year of college.
That's correct.
So their sophomore year, that's when you start to really gain admission into some of the science programs. And a lot of students' grades are, maybe not as strong as they should be, and sometimes it's at the advisor piece. Sometimes the pre-med advisor that they're working with, sometimes like, oh, you're not a competitive applicant because you got all Bs, which we know that's not true. Right? Or you might got 1 C, so that means that you'll never be a doctor. Medical schools are only looking for those students with 4.0, and that's not true. And we see this not only with African American students, but we see this with all students. But it's particularly with African American students, why it's so unique, because there are only a small number of African American students who are really going into into pre-med, which really, when those numbers start to get dwindled down because of their interactions with the pre-med advisors, the numbers start to really shrink. So it's a problem, because one, it starts in K through 12, and if you do get through that pathway into undergraduate, then you have the other obstacle of you have an environment that is not as inclusive.
We locally here in Detroit, we found that to be very true for several years now. We started a mentorship program many years ago and still runs now, but we've kind of been lulled to a position on that this is a one-on-one contact in terms of who mentors who. And it's broader than that, okay? As a matter of fact, we started out with the 11th and 12th graders in high school and quickly realized that we needed to be in the ninth grade in terms of mentoring, and it needed to be broader than just the one-on-one contact. One of the things that came out of that, though, Dr. Roy, is we found out that our local universities had poor counseling for undergraduate students. And this is every university we looked at, and that still exists today. The kind of direction and information that these students are getting as freshmen and sophomores is poor at best, incorrect at times, and leads to or adds to some of the failure that we see in terms of not having the pool to pick from when it comes time to apply to medical school.
Definitely. So I was in November. I went to this AAMC conference that really looked at what you were talking about, Dr. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that the AAMC is working on is actually to do some advising, to do a certificate, a program that really trains the trainer, really looking at working with pre-med advisors, because at the national level, they're aware, especially when it comes to African American, is that the advising that they're receiving, is not as supportive or as accurate as the information that the students are receiving. So it's discouraging. And sometimes the environment also too, we have to remember when these students are first generation college students and they don't have the support that some of the, that maybe a white, Asian or other populations have. And so that information is not being trickled down to our students.
Exactly.
And especially if you have an advisor who has some implicit biases toward your population, then that in itself is problematic.
Exactly. If this was the football team, we wouldn't have a problem.
No,
we would know everybody's performance in high school.
Right.
And I mean, that's the way it goes. I mean, the coaches have film on ninth graders in Ann Arbor. Okay, I mean, come on, let's face it. That's the comparator that we really should be looking at to look to build successful. And as a tomorrow there's a championship game. Look at the pattern in terms of mentorship and recruitment and support. Part of the problem is the medical school itself. I know one of the issues that we've had in Ann Arbor for a long time is the attitude that we just look outside the door of the medical school and see who's in line, as opposed to having real programs that actually look to change the percentages of admissions. That's the reason we don't have change. We have settled for failure in a lot of institutions to do that. Let me shift gears here. One of the problems that we have is the financing of a medical education. It has, I mean, compared to 30 years ago when I was in debt for medical education, I mean, it's astronomical now. I mean, people are graduating from medical school with numbers that are just staggering and unbelievable, especially if you add on the undergraduate debt that they've incurred also. It's amazing. I mean, how do people overcome this now, getting through medical school and handling the pressure of having that debt face them very few months down the road?
Right. So one of the things that the average student debt coming out of medical school is anywhere from $250,000 and higher, and that's just medical school. We're not even talking about the undergraduate debt that they incur, because a lot of the students that we see, majority are that are African American, are first generational college students. And those students come from low socioeconomic backgrounds, so they have to take these student loans out, right? So now we're looking at these students taking these loans out just to survive medical school, or even one of the things they do, they work, right? They're working in order to pay for their school as undergraduate or just to even live. So once they get into medical school, right, then they can't work no more. So now they have to even take out more loans just to live, because when you're in medical school, you cannot work. So some of the things that students are doing right now is, if they don't get a scholarship, some of these students are going into the military, right? They're going into the military, they sign up because then they can get their tuition waived from undergraduate. students are then, even better yet, are going and taking these high risk loans in order to pay for their education. We need to have our government, we have to have our legislation here in the state of Michigan looking at the problem. The fact that the representation for African American is so low, we really need to we need to be fighting for bills to pay tuition free. Not just tuition free, and this part of equity is also to paying them for a living stipend, because these students not only are, cannot work, but they cannot pay for bills. And then what happens, Dr. Joe, if you have $250,000 in debt, you can be paying this off for the rest of your life. So what do you end up doing?
Most of your career.
Right. So what you end up doing, you don't go into primary care. That's what we need, right? In our community, you start going into plastic surgery. You start being surgeons, right? You start going into dermatology, even though we need these we're needed in our community. But in our community, we need more family medicine. We need more, primary care providers to support the community. But these students look at their debt and they start going into some of these more specialties that pay a higher living wage.
Dr. Roy, we're up against a break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of Primary Care.
This is Bishop Edgar Van. I know firsthand what it means for churches to be equipped and trained in the case of health emergencies. I had a heart attack here on a New Year's Eve service some years ago. No pulse, no breathing. I was out. But the hand of the Lord, and of course, my trained professionals. Many churches have what they call nurses' guilds, which are a group of faithful people who serve dressed up and untrained. We have an emergency medical response team here at Second Ebenezer that came to my rescue at the right time and helped save my life. So churches are so important in terms of them having trained professionals who are going to be ready to equip and to serve the people as they come. This is what churches must do as a part of the partnership along with our medical professionals to make sure that health is a priority.
Welcome back. We're here with Dr. Donovan Roy, Vice Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Wayne State University School of Medicine here in Detroit. Dr. Roy, we touched on this a little bit, but I want to get back to the lack of faculty, African American, or not minority, but African, lumping these terms together get us in trouble sometimes. Right. But I want to get back to the lack of African American faculty in medical schools in this country and what our experience has been here locally. Can you comment on the Wayne State situation for us?
This is across the nation. We have a black faculty member in academic medicine is extremely low. The problem is even worse than what we have at the medical school level. One of the reasons why we don't have such a high number of African American faculty member is the fact that, like I said, once again, when we're talking about being academic medicine compared to going to a competitive specialty, you still have to pay those student loans. And also, too, the ones that we have here, they do a fantastic job, but also, too, it's called that, minority tax that a lot of these faculty members are, where you have the faculty members, if you're African American, you ask to mentor students. You ask to sit on all these different committees. Right. You ask them to do community outreach. It's so much that you
must be productive financially.
Yes. And then you have to go out there and get grants, right? Mm-hmm. And then if you want to get tenured, then you have to go out there and then do publications. Mm-hmm. So you ask to do so much that probably your colleague is maybe you do have some colleagues who are not African Americans who experience those same things, but not as a higher number as African American, because there's so few faculty members that are African American in academic medicine. Mm-hmm. So this problem is based upon our medical schools and medical education being intentional, right? About developing programs. Where is the pipeline program? What is the pathway programs that really provide, African American students while they're in medical schools an opportunity to go into academic medicine? So one of the things that I'm doing at Wayne State School of Medicine, is I'm bringing in building the next generation of academic physician. There's a program that is dedicated to grooming the next generation of URM, which is underrepresented in medicine, which, like, once again, we get category with everybody else. African American students fall underneath that category. And the program is geared towards providing them with the support, with workshops, and getting them in front of mentors to get them, the professional experience and giving them that depth of knowledge in order for them to go into academic medicine. But Dr. Joe, how can you be something, you know what I mean, if you don't see it, if you don't have those role models? The lack of role models is another reason why we don't have many African American physicians who are going to academic medicine, because we don't have them on campus. And if we don't have them on campus, right, then what's really impacting is the fact that you don't have someone that really can teach you how to go into this profession. We really need more academic physicians.
Are you seeing the buy-in from the rest of the faculty, the majority faculty, who are they understanding that there is a role that they play in the development of African American academic physicians?
I think they're not aware of it, and those who are aware, they do something. But one of the things that we're doing, and from the provost has allocated that we and then they allocated some funding to hire 5 additional African American physicians at Wayne State College. So we are recognizing the fact that we do need more representation.
Yes, we heard the dean make that announcement.
Yeah.
5 is a good start.
Five. That's a start, but we know that we need, even that number need to be quadrupled.
Right.
So and so I think we recognize that at Wayne State how important that representation is. So we are moving forward. We are doing things under Dean Sacker's leadership to provide more opportunities for African American physicians.
Let's shift gears again. The importance of Black medical schools. Traditionally we've had 3, then 4 for, with the addition of Drew coming on decades ago. And now we are hopeful of 2 other medical schools coming on for a total of 6. They have a different role to a great degree, and we know that you've had some relationships with them in the past. Talk about the importance of the Black medical school as it exists now.
It's important that we have more Black physicians, because if you look at the numbers and you look at the numbers across the country, without these historically Black medical schools, Black medical schools, the numbers will be even a lot worse than what they are today. So the role of them is to groom the next African American physician to take care of the communities that they set in. But 6 isn't, compared to 180, is still not even. It's not even like 5%. So we really need more medical school, and their job is to really groom the next physician and really take a look at how we can improve healthcare for the Black community, and what are the roles of a Black physician in making sure that we have more healthier communities.
The role of the primary care physician has been challenged. It's not going to go away. It's changing. The flavor of it has changed over the last 15 years, 20 years or so, in terms of what's required to be a primary care physician in the community. And as a result of that, we see people shying away from it. You mentioned earlier that one of the reasons to do that is we don't have the ability to support. It's amazing we're saying this in this country, but the financial support 10 years after training for a primary care physician is devastating to them, especially with the debt that they have, and the ability to earn in a traditional manner, like physicians did. Some of us got in on the tail end of that earning capacity, but right now it's a dangerous situation almost to be in. How can we convince the younger generation of physicians that primary care is still a viable choice in terms of what they decide to do with medical education and training?
I think tuition loan forgiveness programs are
That would be a big step.
Yeah, huge step, because one of the statistics that from research, we already know that African Americans are 2 times more likely than any other medical students to practice medicine in the underserved community. and especially as primary care providers. So it's very important that we really look at, to loan forgiveness programs that really provide them, with that safety net that says that, you practice, as long as you practice in an underserved community, then your loan will be forgiven.
You make a very good point in terms of what can happen to make a big difference quicker, sooner, faster in terms of helping people make these types of decisions. We've got to dispel some of the myths, though, about what's going on in the practice of medicine, in healthcare in general, especially where the fat is, who's doing who's making what it takes to make those dollars. Some of those things are still myths. I mean, I was with some people in Ann Arbor a couple of weeks ago who totally missed what's going on in the broader community of practicing medicine. I mean, and it's because they are, as on the academic side, they're overworked. They are stretched out. 12-hour days are the norm, and basically they don't have time really to pay attention to a lot of the other things that happen in the broader community. If you were to take their situation and transplant it to Detroit, where the needs are different, the percentages are different when you start talking about the severity of the type of care that they would face. It's totally different, and it's like deer in the headlights when you say, no, it ain't quite like that. Okay, that's why I think that medical schools need to take the lead on these types of things. I mean, I really don't think it's fair for medical schools to sit back and play the traditional role in terms of what we do and rest on our laurels for so many years. I think that's part of our problem now, changing the approach that where the brightest minds, the people that we're training to be physicians, that leadership, there is a leadership role there that has to be played by medical schools as well in order for us to change this. And we know that a lot of the work that you've done at Wayne State University in your career has been focused on that. Before we go, tell us about some of the stuff that's coming up, some of the plans that you have, where you want this thing to, what do you want it to look like, 5 years from now, in the direction that we're heading here locally.
Well, one of the things I would like to do is I would like to bring back what Dr. Whitten, Dr. Silas, and Dr. Vincent, I want to bring back their work. These are giants at Wayne State when it comes to moving the needle of diversity forward. My goal also is to really connect with the Detroit Medical Society. I really think we, over the years, as medical school, really missed, not partner more, with that organization, because that organization really can come in and mentor our students, but also to help us guide and give me direction on, okay, what are some of the needs? What are you seeing from patient care? And how can we, as in my office, be able to work together in order to, bridge that gap, to narrow and provide excellent care from the standpoint of working with our students. Also to working in close to help recruit more Black faculty members. One of the things, if I'm a Black faculty member and I don't, at any institution, and I do not see me representation, or if I don't know, if I don't have any understanding of the role of physician in the community that I want to serve in, why would I want to come there, right? Because it's not just me as a physician, it's my family too. So being able to connect with people who have a family, having physicians, so already having people that I have already met and already build a relationship before I got on campus is gonna be sustainability for me to come there. It's gonna increase the likelihood that I'm here. Also too, we have the first post-bac programs in medical education in the nation. So one of the things that I want to do is really use that as another vehicle to increase diversity. But it should not be the only way that we increase diversity at our medical school. Is really working closely with the undergraduate campus, because one of the things I think we don't have as many Wayne State graduates as we did in previous years matriculating into the medical school, because that's one thing that I really admire about Detroit is that I'm from Detroit. I grew up in Detroit. I went to Wayne State undergraduate. I went to Wayne State Medical School. Now I'm back. I'm practicing, or I'm working as a faculty member
Right.
at Wayne State.
That was a successful trend for some people for a long time here. When I was a student and go to the DMS meetings, I mean, you know, the real highlight of those meetings was to see people like Charles Vincent, Charles Whitten, Charles Ennis. We used to call them the three Charleses. I mean, you know, what I mean, and people serving in roles of deans and serving in roles of faculty. To see the Clarence Vaughns, who was the first PhD, MD, faculty member, department head at Wayne State. All of those kinds of things. Those kind of role models as a student meant a lot to us coming along, and it was all because of the approach that was taken at Wayne State. And I agree with you. That approach, that flavor, needs to be brought back at Wayne State so that we can continue not just the legacy, but continue the progress that we need to make. Dr. Roy, this has been just an outstanding time period here with you. Thank you for making the time to be with us.
Dr. Joanne. And before I leave, one of the things I want to tell those who are listening to, I am committed to the African American community. You know, I am committed to make sure that if your son or daughter, or nephew, niece, you know, someone in your community, you know, who really want to become a physician, I don't care what age you are. I've worked with students who were 45 years of age that were medical students.
Yes.
I'm committed. I have a track record that I've helped students who were not competitive get into medical school. So at any time you hearing this message, please reach out to me. And really, so my email address where you can reach me at is hk7391@wayne.edu. Please reach out to me.
Very good. Thank you again, Dr. Roy. We are definitely on the same page in our thought processes to get this done. We support you. Glad to have you here in Detroit, and look forward to making a whole lot of progress under your leadership at the Office of Diversity and Inclusion at Wayne State University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Really appreciate your support.
Our guest has been Dr. Donovan Roy, Vice Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Wayne State University School of Medicine. For Primary Care, I'm Dr. Lonnie Joe. Thank you for joining us.